Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Old Home. Today we are making a tier list from units from Casual faction in Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Horn of the Abyss mod. And in this tier list I'm kind of comparing the Casual's units with each other. Of course the overall balance regarding all of the units is taken into account, and also the tier itself affects it, so the requirements for tier 1 units are quite a bit smaller than to tier 7 units, and furthermore my series of how good is for different units affects the results as well. But without further ado, let's begin. First we have Pikemen, tier 1 unit, and well, I don't know. Of course there are reasonable enough in the early game, but they are among the slowest units in Casual's roster. So, and they are melee units, so you are bound to suffer casualties in battles. So I think if we were comparing tier 1 units only, these could go perhaps as high as B or C tier, but regarding other Casual units, I think, well, this is the early unit you can get, and I think this is the worst unit you can get. But I think the upgraded version here, Halberdiers, have a bit increased speed, which is always nice, but still I think it's not that great of an unit. Well, I guess regarding other tier units it can beat most of those in one-on-one, perhaps the exception of Kentaur Captains and Master Gremlins, and of course the Factory Halflings, and most likely Pixies, Sprites, yeah. I'm kind of wondering between B or C tier, but let's put it on the lower end of B tier. If this was kind of scaled more granularly, I would put it somewhere around here, but let's see how many B tier units we will have. Then let's move to tier 2 units. First we have Archer, the first missile unit of Casual, and at least in the how good is tests, Archer unit tends to perform a bit worse because most of those tests feature high-speed units, and that practically means that Archer's main capabilities become rather limited. So, especially in the early game, I think Archers are really good because you can beat those monsters on the map without suffering too many casualties. Of course, Archers by themselves are rather weak unit, they are rather slow unit. So, because of that, I think low B tier or strong C tier. But because of the slowness and they slow down the army a bit, I think high C tier for them, at least for now. Let's see in the end if we should switch the places of, for instance, with these two units. Then we have crossbowmen, or rather marksmen, and these kind of double the damage output of archers, and furthermore they have rather decent speed for tier 2 unit, so that's rather great. I think this is one of the better tier 2 units, and most definitely in the early game one of the best units that Casual can get, and because of that I think it deserves a place in A tier. So you can take on quite strong enemies if they have only slow units, and these marksmen will just whittle them down with some protection from pikemen and halberdiers. They can take on even stronger enemies, so I think this place in A tier is rather well deserved for them. Then let's move to tier 3 units. First we have Griffin, and I think it's rather solid A tier as well. Perhaps not as good as Archer because it's higher tier, but still it has relatively high speed, well actually the same as the marksmen. But that capability to retaliate twice is nice, and also the ability to fly makes things easier. at least in some cases. And of course the growth is rather good for Castle with the Griffin Conservatory. So, or is it, with Griffin Bastion. So I think it deserves a place in A tier. And then we have Royal Griffins with rather high speed, especially for tier 3 unit, and unlimited retaliations, so, and also the high growth that applies to Griffins, normal Griffins as well. So the unit is, in my opinion, rather well rounded. A really solid unit for tier 3, and I think it deserves a place in the weaker S tier. Furthermore, it's rather strong combo if you can boost the defense somehow, then send this unit to the midst of the enemy and then perhaps resurrect the stack with Archangels. So yeah, I think on the weaker end of S tier. Then let's move to another infantry unit, tier 4. First we have Swordsmen. I mean, yeah, tier 4 they are relatively slow and their stats are not actually that great, in my opinion. So I think I will give them only C tier. Because of the lack of speed and, well, they are kind of Medicore in battle, but slow speed combined to Medicore battle stats, in my opinion, doesn't deserve a place even in B tier. Of course, you can recruit these quite early, so kind of the first unit you can get are these tier 1, then tier 2, but you get these tier 4s actually before tier 3s. So that's kind of an interesting mechanic, but still I think this Swordsman only deserves a place in strong C tier. Then let's move to Crusaders, and well, that double strike they have is a really nice thing. They are a bit speedier than the Swordsmen, so I think their place is in solid A tier, because mostly of that double strike they can have. So those units are really heavy hitters, they deal tremendous amounts of damage, and of course if you can take out the enemy retaliation before hitting twice, that damage output is still increased. So I think it's rather good for tier 4 unit. Then let's move to tier 5. First we have Monks, and I guess it's already rather plain that I appreciate speed quite a bit. And Monks are rather on the glass cannonish side of things, and they don't even hit that hard. I mean, if they were tier 3 or perhaps even tier 4 unit, they could be quite high, but as they are tier 5, one could perhaps expect a bit more of them. So I will put them only in C tier. I think because of their ranged unit, they can outperform Swordsmen quite nicely, but if you consider that you are hunting the monsters on the map with tier 5 units, you are not kind of expecting to fight tier 1, 2, 3, perhaps even 4 units that much, but on the higher tier units. And then speed becomes an issue. You need to be able to protect your shooters rather well, or your shooters need to be able to outrun the enemies or something like that. So, I mean, the slow speed with rather poor stats, it's C tier. Then we have Zealot. Well, upgraded version of Monk, they can fare quite a bit better in melee, and actually the cost effectiveness of Monks and Zealots are relatively good, in my opinion, but still the upgraded version lacks, or rather suffers pretty much from the same issues as the normal Monks. So because of that, it only deserves a place in B tier. I think it will be higher than Halberdiers nonetheless. Then let's move to tier 6 units. First we have Cavaliers, and well, they can take quite a beating. That's rather nice. For tier 6 units, they are a bit on the slower side. So, well, I'm not sure. And of course they have that jousting bonus, but in my opinion that's not quite that great with this smaller speed. So I think they are B tier units for me. Then again, when we get to champions, these guys are relatively fast, actually as fast as Royal Griffins, so that's really nice. And they do pack a punch. It's especially important for them to get to use the jousting bonus to full efficiency, so you need to move quite a lot with them, and that speed is rather nice regarding that. And I think solid A tier for these guys. I'm just wondering, I guess we will put them on this side of the Crusaders. Let's see about Marksmen. Well, perhaps I think Marksmen as tier 2 unit is better in its tier related to these champions over here. So rather equal, but let's let them remain this way. Then we have Angels, the fastest unupgraded unit for Castle No Surprise there, tier 7 unit, and I think the +1 morale for the whole army is rather nice. If it triggers even once, it can decide the battle. And of course there is a possibility for them triggering that effect rather more often. Of course, well, the unit is tanky, it fights rather well. At the same time, the Portal of Glory costs rather much, and the Angels themselves are not that cheap. So I think A tier, and I'm wondering which place in A tier. I think somewhere around here. Let's put them right here. I don't actually know if 2 champions could beat 1 angel. I doubt that, actually, because they can get jousting bonus once, but after that, not an angel has the possibility for first strike, so they cannot actually use that jousting bonus that much. So I think, yeah, angels before champions here. And then, last but most definitely not least, we have Archangels, and, well, they are perhaps or they really are the most expensive tier 7 unit in HOTA. In the basic game, I think in the most recent ones they cost as much, so the most expensive unit for tier 7, but I think you get quite a bit for what you pay. So first of all, they are among the fastest tier 7 units, and here I'm excluding the Azure Dragons and other those neutral tier 7 units. But among those you can build, I think only Phoenixes are faster than Archangels. Furthermore, they hit quite hard, and then I think one of the most important abilities is Resurrection. And in my opinion, when you are advancing in the campaign map, it's rather important that you suffer as little casualties as possible, or not at all if that's avoidable, because then you can kind of keep moving without a need to get reinforcements, which will slow you down if you need to go back or have another hero bringing those reinforcements and so on. So that will make things difficult. So with Resurrection you can prevent casualties from occurring for quite a while, and thus you can keep your exploration going and thus you can gain kind of momentum advantage over your opponents in the map. And of course there is that +1 morale buff that the normal angels bring as well. So because of this, I think these guys deserve the place in the highest ranks of S tier. And then we need to consider this, so I think Archer was to be somewhere a bit higher here. I guess we will put that way, and then I'm just wondering if the Halberdiers are a bit too high up here. But I guess we will let them stay as they are here. So here is my view of casual units in Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Horn of the Abyss mod. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Feel free to post comments otherwise as well. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Old Tom out.